Hey, it's Mike from 424recording.com. In today's video, we're going to talk about why you should never record in a real studio. Well, I guess first we should define our terms. A real studio to me is one that has a professional engineer. The rooms are treated with acoustic material or treated to some degree to enhance the sounds that you can record in them. A real studio has better gear than I have, although better is a relative term today, as well as real studio and as well as professional engineer. So what you should do is really define what real studio means to you. I think the only thing I don't have that a real studio has are treated rooms and a treated listening room. There's workarounds for that. And the equipment isn't necessarily better or worse today, just more expensive and less expensive. It just all comes down to what you do with it. I guess it depends what your goals are as a musician. If your goals are just to play a couple shows around town every once in a while or a couple times a year, then you should probably not go to a real studio unless everybody in your band is on the same page about doing it for fun and you guys are going to pool together your resources to go do it as an experience. Then that's a different story. Part of the problem with real studios today is that they have really high overhead. I've talked about this with Jay the Wizard because he has his own studio, but he keeps his costs down to run it, so it kind of works for him. But I don't know if many of you know this, and I'm sure you do. A lot of big studios are shuttering their doors. A lot of places are closing down because it just doesn't make sense anymore to maintain all of that equipment. Rent a space, because spaces cost a lot of money today, as does all that vintage equipment. And unless it's a real labor of love or you're just a millionaire that's just sitting on a bunch of money that you don't know what to do with, then I guess a studio makes sense for you to operate. But studios cost a lot of money to run, and as a musician, if you're not out there beating the pavement or playing a lot of shows or recouping the expenses that you're going to spend to record in a real studio, because they're going to charge you a lot because their overhead is obviously astronomical compared to what your overhead could be and you're doing this stuff in your bedroom like I'm doing, or like a lot of you guys are doing. You know, some places want to charge up to $1,000 per song for you to record. I mean, obviously the best places are going to charge you some kind of daily rate because then the onus is on the engineer to do a good job, not to just milk you for your hard-earned cash. But some places want to charge by the song because there's a lot of work on the back end. I'm not trying to rag on anybody who has a studio. It's a lot of work to record. Any of you guys probably know that who have done your own stuff. I'm a little lazy when it comes to getting my sounds right before I record them, so I don't have to mix much on the back end. Making sure things are leveled out so the master comes out well. Practicing my song a lot so that when I do go to record it, it's ready to be recorded. I don't have to waste time setting things up or finding the levels I want because I know how to play my song. I know how loud I'm going to be. Bing, bam, boom, let's get it done. Invest in yourself and your own skills, not somebody else's. Unless you know you don't have a knack for technology, I think it's almost always better to take the money that you would put into recording in a real studio and put that money toward buying your own equipment to record yourself in the future. Because this is going to pay off dividends, and the equipment's cheap enough that anybody can go to any online retailer or brick and mortar music store and grab a few $100s worth of equipment and be able to go record themselves. Because the classic quote is, you know, we all have better technology than the Beatles had when they were recording their mega opuses. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But like I'm saying, take the money that you would use in a real studio and invest in your own interface. Invest in a couple cheap mics and try it out for yourself because you'll have an infinite amount of time versus being under the gun in a real studio. Maybe not even getting it to sound the way you want it to sound because it takes a lot of time to figure out what studio is best for you, what engineer works best for you. I've been to a lot of different studios and recorded with a lot of different people, and a lot of the times they don't really understand where I'm coming from, and maybe that's my own fault, you know, for me not doing my homework about what those people do. But you have to really understand what you want to get and how to achieve those results. And sometimes the best way to do that is just to do your own homework and your own due diligence. And with Google and the technology we have at our fingertips, it's so easy to search for anything. Search for Tame Impala, how they recorded their drum sound. Search for Elliott Smith, what did he use to record his vocals? There is an unlimited amount of information out there. So if you want your band to sound like X, Google X and find out what they used, find out what they did. I mean, obviously your band is not going to sound like that band if you don't sound like that band, but it's a start if you know the type of universe that you want to go for in your recording. Because a lot of engineers will just put their own personal spin on it or what they want it to sound like versus what you want it to sound like. And I feel like that's where a lot of problems come up in the studio, is where lack of communication and people not sure how things are going to come out, or artist thinks it's going to come out a certain way, engineer wants it to come out a certain way, and that's a recipe for disaster. And just expectations run high and you get disappointed. Also, it's just a lot of fun to record record with you and your friends and to go get an Airbnb or record in somebody's garage or record in a cabin in the woods. You can make a real event out of it that could be a lot of fun and make a lot of memories with people and learn a lot in the process. I mean, that's pretty much how I got started, you know. I was always the guy everybody looked to record when we started recording stuff. And over the years, I've just accumulated more and more gear as we wanted to do more things with our recordings, or different bands wanted to get different sounds, or different bands just sounded different and we needed different techniques and different equipment. And I've recorded in a bunch of different studios and to varying results, and I've just always enjoyed doing it more myself. And maybe that's for you, maybe it's not. That's something you need to decide for yourself. But honestly, I just got tired of having bad results in real studios. So this is strictly anecdotal, but perhaps you can relate. A lot of engineers want to also be a producer and have the producer's hat, which I think a good engineer's role is to just get out of the way of the musician and let them do their thing, you know? An engineer should be somebody who is running the equipment. They're the people that have the knowledge and the equipment to record you so that you don't have to worry about recording yourself, which is a whole nother piece of the puzzle. But so I feel like a lot of engineers or lower level engineers either have like an ego, or they will just fight you tooth and nail to get things their way when it's your music. Why pay somebody to record their vision of your music when you have a clear vision of what your music is? You know, an engineer's job should be to work with you, not against you. So unless you know an engineer well, just tread carefully and do your research. You know, it used to be a musician needed to get a break to go into a studio, or, you know, studios used to cost thousands of dollars to record, and the technology and the knowledge was kind of behind a wall because people didn't really have access to it because it was so expensive to maintain that equipment. And, you know, a studio used to be more of a, I don't want to say it used to be more of a niche, but in, I guess like 60s, 70s, you know, the equipment was way more expensive. It was almost like a specialty thing that you needed to do. It wasn't really a thought in people's minds, like as soon as they recorded something. I mean, today you could come up with an idea and record it on your phone in no time. But the technology just didn't exist to do that kind of a thing back then. So you had to practice and hopefully either pay money to go record your single in a studio, or you had to be good enough that people wanted to pay for you to be recorded. And that's not the way it is anymore. Like, music and art and recording has all been democratized with the internet and with advances in technologies. It's no longer behind a wall. It's no longer just for the elite musicians. It's for anybody who wants to record anything. You can do that, and it's totally up to you. People say the next great album will just be recorded by some kid in a basement in Ohio somewhere, you know, that just has a laptop and some cheap mics, and that's it. Because it all comes down to ideas. It doesn't come down to how much money you're willing to throw at something. You know, the power is in the hands of the people, not the gatekeepers. There's nothing magical about engineers. They've just been recording bands for longer than you have. Don't let semantics hold you back. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something, or that you can't make something pro-sounding by yourself, if that's what you're going for. I'm convinced that anything that can be done in a real studio can be done at home, in your bedroom, on whatever you're watching this on. I mean, if that wasn't the case, wouldn't we still all be recording in real studios? Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, you nerd. Godspeed, my friend. Let me know what your experiences in real studios have been like. What do you think of the concept of real studios? Does it still exist? Do you like going to them? Would you never go to them again? Let me know in the comments below. Peace.